Was there anything in Psychosynthesis that particularly helped you through these situations?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Just one.
Yeah.
For me, Psychosynthesis is personally, I think it's a fantastic foundation on which to build that connection with self. I really do. The experience of disidentification,
Yeah,
is when it's first felt, consciously with, and it is unbelievably, I don't even have the words for it. Let me find the words. It's expansive. Expansive, because to be in, and yeah, I think that was really that really first Psychosynthesis experience of the power of ASSAGIOLI'S work, and the way that he articulated it, and the way that, and I'll describe it in a moment, and the way that yeah, it makes it very accessible to one's eye, and to make that very conscious is very powerful. So for me, I remember being in a situation that one moment I was caught in it, and it was, the world was closing in, and the pain was immense, and it was an emotional pain because I had been very, very triggered, you know, really evoked early traumatic wounding, and then something shifted, and suddenly I was, it had come to a, you know, ASSAGIOLI talks about we have to identify to disidentify. So it really came to that, you know, that peak of pain, and then suddenly something happened, and there became a space around me, and so I was still with the pain very much, but I wasn't consumed by it. And from that space, there was like also that knowing, it's like being in that dream, when we dream and we suddenly realize I'm dreaming, that actually it's like, oh, okay, I'm not going to implode. I can be with this, I can tolerate this, it's, you know.
Yeah.
And that for me was so incredibly powerful.
So there is some kind of, it's liberating, and you use the word expansive. What could you put a few more words upon it? How do you experience this expansiveness?
How do I experience the expansiveness? And just allowing it just to sit with me for a minute, because it's too easy just to kind of talk it through. And we don't have enough words. It just gets calm. There's a stillness. For me, Ken, there's a real sense of when I become aware of my limitations. I'm here in this moment, and this is what's happening. And when I'm aware of that, then the process is to kind of move through, and it's not an intellectual, it's really a soulful moving. It's that journey of the soul. It's like allowing myself to surrender, but also be very grounded. It's the heaviness. And it's also that feeling like, once I'm aware of that limitation, I am here. Then I can begin to give permission to myself to be here, give permission to my, you know, everything seems to calm down. My sub-personalities, they're like, ooh. And there's expansiveness from that, the chatter, the intensity. Yeah. And as soon as I begin to honor that, there's freedom.
Yeah.
There's freedom.
I think you're pointing to something that is very, very important. In the introduction to the Psychosynthesis manual of ASSAGIOLI, he speaks about the experience of the self. that we can have a direct experience of the self, and it's separated from any life circumstances or content of the experience. So there is a particular experience of the self that he is pointing to, and this is exactly what it is. It is the silence, the calm, the permanency of the I. There's something in us that never changes. There's something in us that can always be present to whatever is active in our personality. And finding this place is also, in my experience, very expansive, because instead of having all the content, the pain up in your face, where you are totally identified with it, you create a gap where you can breathe and where you can have a direct experience that this is not all of you. You know, you have this calm place even in the midst of pain and misery and suffering. And I think pointing to this place that is every person's heritage, you know, this is part of anyone. But, you know, having someone to pointing it out and finding this space within is for me the first step of liberation, you know, because you know who you are, and you know you are the witness, you are the observer, you are the one that is present to what is going on. And this creates a liberating moment. It does not solve the problem. There's still a lot of work doing, you know, in containing and loving and transforming all this content that we are influenced by.
And that's very, very key, actually, because I think it's really important that, what do I say, we can have all the awareness in the world, but unless we're able to then go, okay, now what?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And it is that, you know, creating that space to go, okay, now what for me? Some of the work, you know, as we're talking, I'm thinking about a work that I do sometimes with my clients, whereby they have that experience of being very consumed. And I talk about magic hands and, you know, what would it be like just to imagine that we've got a force field around, and just how close is it at the moment, and just push away. And what does that feel like? That they've got power in their hands to be able to create spaciousness. They're really working with that body, and we do a lot of work. We do it together, and that in itself, visualizing, oh, I have power to push away, whether it's the outside world, whether it's the internalized power, pressure, you know, pain, and to be able to then at least be able to see it a bit more clearly. So it's evoking that will also to go, what feels the right space, what feels the right distance,
and now you're pointing to another very essential aspect of the self, the will. You say evoking that will, you know, the will to create space, because it actually takes an act of will to create that space, and of course the fundamental thing is to be aware. But you know, you also, and it's not always that we are willing to create that space, because if I'm identified with being a victim, that can be some consolation, or that can be some benefits of being the victims, until I understand, wow, now I'm just driven by this birth, you know, this child trauma. Now I have to stop it. And so sometimes we really have to take charge and step in as some kind of an authority and say, okay, no more of these games. I have to be aware of what's going on, because it's not only hurting me, it's also hurting my surroundings if I'm just identified with impulsive behavior.
Yes, Look what you were just doing with your hand before you were doing this. You were going, if I can say, all right, stop right there.
Yeah,
Case in
exactly.
point.